terminology in adoption is kind of interesting because, there's a lot of different things that, phrases that you can use in adoption, phrases that you can use to kind of identify who is who within adoption and adoption triad. And I don't think it's all been settled. I think some people feel comfortable with certain things and some people don't feel comfortable with certain things. I think the key is if you're ever talking to somebody about adoption and you come across a term that you're not quite sure what they want you to say, you just ask them and you just say, hey, what term do you prefer? I think the biggest one is how do you label somebody that has placed a child for adoption? What do you guys prefer as far as there's first mother, there's birth mother, there's just sometimes they just want to be called a mother?
Personally, I prefer birth mom. I don't like the term first mom because I feel like, I don't know, I feel like that's almost saying that they're a second mom and they're not as important. Yeah. So I like being called birth mom, and I think that's a title that I hold special to me. I think that's a good title for me to have.
I have to agree. Birth mother is probably the most comfortable of all the terminology because it's true. I mean, we're still a mom, but we gave birth and then we placed. Yeah. But I don't think there's any other terminology that I've ever been confronted with other than birth mom.
Yeah. I think one of the things, it depends on the context too.
Oh yeah.
Because I know some girls like to say that they're a mother of, say they have other children that they didn't place, and they're asked, how many kids do you have? And you say, well, I'm a mother of 3 children, but they placed, the oldest one, and they have 2 in the home, and they may explain that, or they may not explain that, What other terminology? I personally like placed the child for adoption instead of given up.
Yeah. I don't like the term given up at all. And maybe it's just because I have placed, and I know a lot of people, it has to do with education and letting people know what is appropriate and what's not, because you give away something that's not, like I give away a pair of pants that I don't want anymore. But placed is something that you do with your heart, and it's something I feel like when I picture placing, it's something you do gently, and it's something that you do with a full knowledge of what you're doing, and it's very sacred, in my opinion.
I think it infers choice, when you're placing, you're choosing something, whereas giving up or giving away tends to imply that it's not an option or that you didn't choose to do that.
I have to agree with that one. I started out and it was giving up, and I never liked that terminology, and I never really thought twice about it, at that time, that placed was such a better word to say versus I gave up, because I just never realized that terminology. Being an independent adoption, I didn't have any other options that were given to me. I wasn't, didn't acknowledge that there was other terminology to use. So it was like a shameful thing to say, I gave, versus I placed. So to hear the relinquish is still a weird word for me to say. Yeah. Placed is still more of, I chose to place this. Versus giving up, because I didn't give up, which is the exact opposite. But how weird that terminology was that way for so many years, and how we're trying to change that terminology so it sounds positive, which it is.
Yeah, I think because some people could say, well, you have to say give away because it's not positive.
Yeah.
That adoption is not a positive thing, and it's a bad thing to do. And I think that was part of what was going on, but it's not shameful for, and anybody can look at that. And I think there's a lot of people on the outside of adoption that will say, it is shameful. But when you sit with people who have done it and they say it's not, then how do you battle that? I think some of the terminology, from a caseworker point of view, when you start working with the agencies or attorneys and stuff like that, I think you do need to be careful when you talk about how you talk about money, how you talk about fees, and if you're paying for a baby, as opposed to that's not what you're paying for. You're paying for the services, or if if you're getting any assistance as a birth parent. I think even the expectant parents should be careful about how they talk about any assistance that they're receiving, just because I think it cheapens it when you talk about it as some kind of payment.
Exactly. Well, and that's a big thing, because I've had girls have to have assistance with things, and having people listen to their story and thinking that they're saying that people are paying them money so that they can have this baby. It's totally opposite, as like they're paying for the medical bills, or they're paying for, maybe they need, a place to stay because they don't have the option. So they're trying to help them that way, rather than, here's some money under the table so we can have your baby. Like, what can I give you to give that you will give me give me this child?
And really, let's try to make sure that this is a healthy pregnancy,
Exactly.
And you have a home, and you have medication, and you have food, and you have shelter, and you have clothing, those kind of things, so that the child is healthy.